In this video, we're going to examine Dreamweaver CS4's improved integration with Photoshop. Dreamweaver now supports Photoshop Smart Objects, images that retain a link to the source Photoshop file. If the source file is updated or changed in any way, Dreamweaver recognizes this and has the ability to update the web graphic with the new source file information. This creates a seamless workflow that doesn't require you to do any exporting from Photoshop. You merely drop the Photoshop file into the web page, choose your optimization settings, and save the new web graphic in your site. Dreamweaver automatically links the new graphic to the source file and monitors it for updates. We'll examine smart objects by importing a Photoshop file and then making a quick update. You can see here I have two files open. I have the index.html page and I have the blog.html page. And the reason I have both of these pages open is because we're going to place the graphic on both pages so that you can see more of the overall workflow of working with smart objects across your entire site. So I need to go ahead and place a graphic on the page. I have my cursor exactly where I want to insert this. So I'm just going to go over the insert bar, although I could do this from the menu, and I'm going to choose to insert an image on the page. I'm going to browse out to my assets and find this webbanner.psd. So here is a Photoshop file I'm going to place in my document. And when I click OK, Dreamweaver recognizes, hey, that's a Photoshop file. So instead of just placing the graphic on the page, I have to first optimize it and create a web graphic. Now, I could choose from any file format I want, GIF, JPEG, or PNG file. And I could also resize the file, change the image quality options. Anything that I could do when I'm exporting a graphic out of Photoshop, I can do right here. I'm just going to leave the defaults and I'm going to click OK. Then Dreamweaver says, well, where would you like to place this graphic? So I'm going to put it in the images folder. Click Save to just place it in the images directory. Now, because I have the accessibility options turned on inside Dreamweaver, it says, oh, well, don't you want some alt text for this? I do indeed. So I'm just going to type in web banner, click OK, and there is my web banner. Now, you might notice a slight difference from other images. You'll notice that instead of just showing the image, I have this little badge in the upper left-hand corner. That badge indicates that this is a smart object, and it indicates the current status of the smart object. Seeing that those green arrows means that everything's fine. The source file and this file are indeed in sync. So I'm going to go over to blog.html because how else can we take advantage of this workflow? Well, I'm going to go to my Files panel. I'm going to open up Images, and I'll scroll down, and I'm going to find that web banner that we created earlier. And I'm just going to drag and drop that at that location. Again, I'm just going to type in web banner as the alt text, and it places the graphic on the page. But did you notice that it placed it as a smart object? Dreamweaver is smart enough to know that, hey, this has a source file, and you've used it as a smart object before, so it assumes that you want to do this all the way throughout your site. What makes this really cool is that if we edit our source, which we'll do in just a moment, it'll go ahead and make a site-wide update for you, even for files that aren't open, which is really nice. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save everything. And if I select a graphic, notice that I can go down to the Properties Inspector, and I can choose to edit it in its native application. And it opens up right in Photoshop. Now, if I hadn't had Photoshop already opened, of course, it would launch it, but here it is within Photoshop. So I got a note from one of our art directors that there's an updated banner available here. And if I come into this document, I can see that the updated banner layer is turned off. So I'm going to turn that layer back on again. There we go. So that looks a little better. I'm going to go ahead and save this file, and we'll go ahead and close it. I'll minimize Photoshop. We'll come back into Dreamweaver. Now, in Dreamweaver, notice that the badge changes how it looks a little bit. The sync is off because the original asset has been modified. And if you hover over it, it'll tell you why the sync icon is showing that the item is not in sync. So if I go ahead and double click the banner graphic, I can tell it to update from the original. Go ahead and get the latest information. And as it does this, it's going to overwrite my JPEG. So the whole process of re-optimizing happens behind the scenes. I don't have to do it. You don't have to worry about saving this JPEG over and over and over again. It's rewriting the original image. So I'll go back to index.html to prove another point. As soon as I switch to this page, you'll notice I didn't need to update it here. Dreamweaver knows that I want my source file updated, and it updates it globally across the site. So what's exciting about this workflow is the creativity you have as a designer. You can continue to make changes to images at any point in your project and have those changes update globally across your site. Now, the Smart Object workflow is not the only way to take advantage of using Photoshop files. As in Dreamweaver CS3, you can still copy from Photoshop and paste directly into Dreamweaver. While this doesn't create a smart object, it does give you another powerful integration workflow, as we will see. So I'm going to go back into Photoshop for just a moment. Now, this file was designed to be a print graphic. It really wasn't designed as a web graphic, but as a designer, I might see some things that I like about this, and I might want to put it on my web page. So I'm going to go over to my layers and turn some of these layers off so that I just get that graphic. And I'm going to grab my selection tool, and I'm going to go ahead and do a fixed size selection. So I'm going to do 316 pixels by 130 pixels. And I just happen to know the exact size I need this. And I'm going to click somewhere within the file, and then I'll move the selection around until I get, what I think is a nice looking image. Now, at this point, I can go ahead and go to Edit and just do Copy. Now, I'm going to minimize Photoshop, go back into Dreamweaver, and if I scroll down on this index page, there's a series of images down here that I want to replace one of these. So I'm going to select this image, and this is the one I'm going to replace. I'll go ahead and delete it. And instead of doing anything else, I'll just go up to Edit and choose Paste. So I can literally copy and paste. Now, as soon as I do that, notice that again, Dreamweaver says, well, wait a minute, this is a Photoshop file. I'll go ahead and optimize this. Well, I'll go ahead and accept the defaults. Click OK. And I'm going to place this inside my images directory. And we'll just go ahead and leave the name as couch. That's fine. We'll go ahead and hit save. We'll give it some alt text. Only better. Click OK. There's our graphic. You'll notice that there's no little badge icon. This is not a smart object, but it is interesting in the fact that it does remember the original Photoshop file that it came from. So if I want to edit this in some way, if I click back on Edit Photoshop, this will come back open. Maybe I'm going to turn on some of these accents again and decide which ones I like. So maybe I like that. Maybe I'm going to move the selection around a little bit. So in moving the selection around now, since I have multiple layers, instead of just doing a regular copy, I'll just say copy merged. Now when I go back into Dreamweaver, it doesn't automatically update, but if I go to edit and choose paste, it does. It goes right through that process again. It overwrites the existing JPEG, and I don't have to sit there and go through another optimization process. So it does really speed that up. This workflow is especially suited to working with mockups in Photoshop that need smaller areas exported out, or in the creation of web graphics from much larger images not originally designed for that purpose. For example, if I had something that was really, really large, say 300 dpi, I could come back in here and scale this up or scale this down, and Photoshop would go ahead and re-optimize that from the source graphic because I have that resolution to give. So regardless of whether you're using Smart Objects or Dreamweaver and Photoshop's cut and paste integration, you're going to create a faster, more efficient web graphics workflow that allows you to be more creative at any step along the way in your project.